there's a lot of rumours circling amongst Spurs community. Nothing substantiated. I have to say, it could all be absolute rubbish. But given that there is nothing, we're 10 days now after the season is closed, we haven't heard anything about what is going on with the manager in terms of he's staying, is he going? There's rumours from journalists saying he's been sacked, but we've had no official announcement about any sort of sacking. Other clubs are making signings left, right and centre and getting on with their business. There's Donna Cullen has stepped down from her position in the boardroom alongside, I can't remember the other person's name, but someone else as well. Collicott. There's rumours about unrest in the boardroom, Carrington coming in and shaking up a few feathers, even some suggestions that Levy is under a bit of pressure coming to some of Vinay, obviously taking over as CEO. I'm going to start with Stell on this one. Do you think there's anything to these rumours? Is it just a case of them getting their ducks in a row as we go into the new season before they make a big decision on Ange Postecoglou? Or do you think with the radio silence, there's no smoke without fire when it comes to all these rumours about boardroom unrest?
So my view is that I take everything a journalist, an ITK, a source says with a pinch of salt, because for the last 2 years, what they've said, the opposite has happened, especially with transfers. So I know we enjoy the gossip and it creates content for us, but I just don't buy most of what's said. I've just realised now at Spurs, just wait and see what happens, because that's the actual truth. But with regarding the board, I'll give you my opinion, and that's all it is. It's an opinion. There's no hardcore evidence to back it up.
Well, none of us are on the board still, so everything here is going to be an opinion. Unless you're Johnny H. Unless you're Johnny H. and you have some inside sources, but none of us are Johnny H. So.
Listen, even our fellow friends with their sources, I take it with a pinch of salt as well. Look, my view is this. I think Joe Lewis is of an age where he can't keep doing this. At some point, he's going to want to cash out or pass it on to his family. And I think we're maybe in the beginning stages of that. From what I've understood, Carrington is Lewis's guy. So he's put his guy on the board. Why would he do that? I think it's a new set of eyes on things to understand maybe why the club hasn't been sold to the Qataris, why hasn't investment come in, why hasn't a naming's right deal for the stadium happened yet. Donna Cullen leaving is significant because she is Levy's number 2. So Levy's loyal allies are now beginning to disappear from the board. Vinay coming in, if that's Carrington's person, then that's another Joe Lewis person on the board. So it looks like there's definitely a reshuffle of the pack that may not necessarily be a loyal arm to Daniel Levy. That's what I think is happening right now. Why that's happening, I would say because I think Joe Lewis wants to begin stepping away from the club or passing it on to his family, who they probably want a change of direction and how the board runs. So in my view, yeah, there is something going on in the boardroom, and I think it stems from Joe Lewis, in my opinion. Where they're going to take it next, either a complete sale, a new ownership, or just a reshuffle of the pack to take Spurs in a different direction with some of the old pieces still there, I don't know. But if you're Daniel Levy and you own 30% of the club, you're not just going to let everything happen in front of you and say, yeah, that's okay. He owns 30% of the company. That's his investment. That's his assets. That's for his family to inherit one day, right? So he's going to fight for his piece. And maybe there's a bit of a disagreement between the direction and what happens next. But I think this all stems from Joe Lewis.
Mm. Yeah, Jim, obviously it's hard to really know what's going on behind closed doors right now in the hierarchy of this football club. But given that we haven't heard anything in terms of a decision, one way or another, from the manager, I mean, do you think there is a reason for that? Do you think there is? Obviously, we have heard a lot of talk from reputable journalists saying this is going to be a summer of change at Tottenham, a lot of restructuring in the hierarchy with Vinay coming in, and obviously, we've seen Donna Cullen move on. what do you think is happening right now? But if you were to guess, behind closed doors, why are we not hearing it? Why is there so much indecision where every other club who we're looking to compete with seems to be getting a move on with plans for the new season?
Yeah, there's different theories going around, isn't there? Like, I think there's 2 or 3 main ones. One of them you hear going around a lot is, oh, the silence is because there's nothing to announce. It's business as usual. Andrew's got 2 years on a contract. That's one thing that's going around. Personally, I don't buy that. Like, there's negatives to this silence that are in different forms. One is it's not a great look on the club from a PR perspective from its own fan base. We all find it frustrating. We want communication. So I think when it's so easy to fix by just saying in a subtle way, you could just leak something to a paper, or you could just put out a post to say, our gaffer roll on season 3. You could just get rid of it all that easily. You're consciously choosing not to do that. So that to me shows that their decision hasn't been made. And then that leads to the next question is why? Why is that? Is that because there's wider spread changes at a board level that would mean a change in stakeholders who were involved with that decision of the manager, and therefore you've got a conflict of decisions? So for all we don't know which side which person's on, but we know that Daniel Levy's example's one of the most important decision makers, or one of the most influential decision makers on who the next manager is, as an example. But he's not the only one. And we don't know, is he there saying, we've got to keep this guy, it's my call, I'm the chairman, I want to keep him. And then the other side of the table is saying, no, we need to change all those losses, that league position, it's not sustainable. Look how important Champions League revenue is for this club. We're in this position now, we've got to build on it for someone else. Or it could be Daniel saying, I want him gone, and other people are going, you can't do that. This would be a classic own goal that we can't repeat as a football club. We don't know who's on what side of that argument, which makes it tough. But what I would say is the one thing we know for sure is there is something changing or a decision being made. And we want clarity on that soon, because people are rightly frustrated when you see another club making a signing or something like that. Now, we're not at the point of the summer where it's like, oh my gosh, we've fallen behind, we've missed out on everything. It's not late in the day. But with Spurs, I think we've seen this in previous seasons where we've justified it as exactly that. We've said, hold off, everyone, stop getting so angry. It's only June. Then you start going, it's only July. But come on, it's not, the preseason hasn't even finished yet. It's only the start of August. I just hoping it's not a repetition of that scenario that we've seen too often. I think the club's new CEO, Vinay's, you'd hope he has an influence on this decision, because I don't think you can bring in a new CEO and undermine his first call by making it for them, a really key one like this. So he officially came onto Company's House 2 days ago. So I think it's fair to say you want to give that new CEO an official week in the building, meeting people, getting an opinion. He'll already have a view on it, but just verifying his viewpoint to making a decision. But if it stretches beyond that, I think it's a sign there's deeper things going on than just a managerial decision. Donna Cullen leaving, I think I agree with Stell, could be something like much more to it than that. But equally, it could just be our PR has probably been the weakest area of the club, I think, from a leadership perspective, we'd all agree. She heads up that area. She's one of the ENIC's original guards that was there when the company was worth single-digit millions, and now it's worth billions. She's probably got a significant amount of money she can walk away with. She's got the trophy thing now to kind of say, like, you know what, that's my mission complete. Got the trophy, got my retirement funds. I'm of an age where I can step away and call this a retirement. Maybe it's that, or maybe it could be the new CEO saying, who's famed for good PR, who's famed for handling relationship with the fans well, has said, I've got my own team. I know how to run this. That role is redundant to me, and that person is not what I need in here. And they've got what they needed in terms of that seat being opened up so they can bring in their own person.
Yeah, it's hard to really know what is going on, but I think the longer the silence goes on, the more the rumours are going to grow, isn't it? And it's only going to add fuel to the fire. And also, I want to pick up one thing with you, Brian, as well. Yeah. Levy going on holiday, that's the reports right now. He's the chairman of this football club, who obviously we know has a big say in terms of transfers, in terms of giving the green light and things like that. The transfer window opened on 4 days ago. Why is he going on holiday at this part of the season for a week when there's big decisions to be made, there's plans to be had, and there's potential transfers to be made in the upcoming 10 days or whatever before the Club World Cup, if there's an opportunity? Why is it? Do you buy that he's been going on holiday, or do you think that's something they're putting out? Is there something more to it?
Well, I think when you look at this, the thing that first comes to my mind about this is the January transfer window that we had with Conte when he first came. Daniel Levy flew off to the Bahamas to go meet Joe during that window when we were losing to Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final. And then that following summer was when we had the £150 million windfall, or the war chest, as it was deemed, that we didn't use and utilise. He's gone on holiday now, like you said, at a very, very important time, not just for transfers, but everything going on with the club. He has done this before. And obviously that January, which when he went, everyone was like, what are you doing going in the middle of a transfer window? Actually ended up further down the line with the 150 million so-called war chest. So he's done this before. He'll do it again. But what I will say is a couple of things that both Stella and Jim mentioned. The thing that's got me with Carrington is when Carrington first came in and we announced it, he was brought in as a non-executive director. That was the title. He was coming in as a non-executive. And then within months, he's actually become a huge, and he is a director now, and he is part of the board. So something has obviously changed there. These things, this looks like a major reshuffle at Spurs. Obviously, like Stell said, we've lost. Donna Cullen's gone. Connocott's gone. We have always heard these talks of takeover bids. People like myself and Stell have dreamed of them and said, please let it be. And then it's ended up being just rumours, speculation, whatever it may be. The other thing that Jim mentioned about Ange Postecoglou and there being no decision made, could it be because there is no decision to make? Which I think is a very, very true point. I know Jim said it does look terribly bad. It really does. The PR and the way it's been handling is bad, and it's bringing all this talk, whether it be with us content creators, whether it be social media, whether it be the mainstream media. The one thing that's always certain is uncertainty at Tottenham, and the lack of saying it could come out and they said, listen, Ange Postecoglou is the guy. This has always been our path, and it could be that. But again, you just don't know with this football club, and you've seen, like you said, Cullen out, and Vinay come in. Again, what Jim said with Vinay, with the fan, every Arsenal fan I've spoken to have said when they've spoken about the football, they're kind of undecided whether he helped nurture what they've got now or he left and then they got that. But one thing they all say is his fan engagement and he flourishes at that. And you could say we saw that with the flags, the return of the shelf and Spurs and all the build up with Europe. But Cullen out, and then you look at it now with Carrington. There's so much change, but like I said, the one thing that you can always be certain with at Tottenham is the uncertainty, and we're just we're sitting here waiting to see.
Yeah, and there's also suggestions with what you're talking about with Carrington. Is obviously Lewis, as Stella said, Lewis is Lewis's guy. Carrington's been put in there. Mm-hmm. Now, is there a suggestion? There's been suggestions potentially he's put in there to facilitate a takeover because, as you say, there's always takeover talks constantly with other different people, and they're always breaking down. They're always, for some reason, we're asking for too much. Levy insists on staying on all the time. All these different things and whatever. For one reason or other, these takeover. Obviously, look, takeover talk I'm sure take a while anyway, but for one reason or another, we've never really got it on the line. Stell, do you think Carrington's role potentially is to get in there, understand why these takeover talks are not following through? Is it something Levy's doing? Is Levy moving the goalposts? Is he preventing this from happening? And to maybe try and pass through that and maybe that's why there's talk of a power struggle where Carrington wants these takeover talks potentially to push through, whereas Levy's continually been a stumbling block potentially. That's quite conspiratorial.
You're making it sound like EastEnders.
That's what Tottenham is still. We are basically EastEnders.
Have you seen that documentary? Not documentary. That series called Billions.
Yes.
With the we're becoming that, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Charrington he's a director of Enoch as well. Don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in the circle, and he's a private banker. So what a surprise! A finance person joining the board. None of us have got a clue, really. You know, it's just pure speculation. My opinion is he's a set of eyes and ears on that board as a mechanism for Joe Lewis to have a different opinion on what's going on, because he's got Joe Lewis and Levy. They must be tight. They must be close. They've got joint ventures in non-Spurs related business.
But there's suggestions still that Joe Lewis's daughter, who the company's name is in now, isn't a fan of Daniel Levy.
Yeah, I've heard this rumor a lot, but again, where do these stories come from? Who puts them out there? It could be true. It could be. I'm not dismissing. I'm just saying there's so much hearsay and speculation. You can get caught up in it. I mean, I've been caught up in this stuff in the past, and that's why I just take a little step back away and say, you know what? Let's just see what happens. But Charrington definitely is Lewis's guy, and he's been put in there for a reason. I think he's there because Lewis is of an age where he now wants to either cash out or pass on business, and there isn't big investment that's come in like we've seen at Man United with Ineos, who took 25% of Man United or 30%, whatever the amount is. We haven't got stadium naming rights deals. We constantly hear about the Qataris, but nothing ever happens. So I think Joe Lewis, like if I was Joe Lewis's age, why am I holding on to Spurs? Either just officially give it to the kids, right, company's yours, or sell up. But neither's happened. So I think that's why Charrington's there, to understand what's going on or to force something to happen. That's my view on it.
Let's move on talking about the manager situation now. Obviously, as we've mentioned, we haven't really heard any update. We heard on I think it was Sunday night, a few journalists did come out saying Tottenham have made a decision to sack Ange Postecoglou. I think it was Tavaleri and Santiago Una, who in football Twitter world is fairly reliable sources when it comes to these kind of rumours, and they are suggesting that Tottenham have made the decision to sack Ange Postecoglou. Now we've heard nothing since then. Now we've heard Pedro Porro do an in-depth interview about how much he backs Ange Postecoglou and wants him to stay. We've heard rumours about Christian Romero saying if Ange leaves, he's going to ask to leave. Obviously, I think we've been doing a series of polls, and whatever you want to look into them, the polls we've been doing, you know, having tens of thousands of votes, majority seem to want Ange to stay at the moment, especially given who we've been linked with, which we'll get into in a minute. But we'll talk about Ange first. Jim, the longer this silence goes on, is it looking better or worse than Ange Postecoglou for you?
So, for me, the longer it goes on, the more it confirms to me that they are not certain on him as the head coach for next season. Because I think if it was as simple as, and this is coming from, I know people watching, haven't seen me before, you know, I've, like Sim, you and I, we've been quite staunchly like, let's stick with this man, let's stick with Ange, give him 3 months into next season. But equally, I think I've always had the view that I would never call anyone crazy who disagrees with me, or say they're wrong who disagrees with me on that, because when you finish in an extremely low league position like we did, there's just cause for a review of your performance. And if that happened in the industry that I work in, and I'm sure the same with any of us on here and jobs we've had now or in the past, if you massively overperform on one KPI and massively under-deliver on another, I would be I'd just come into a room at the start of the next fiscal year and they'd say, you did really well here, but I need you to clearly show me your plan for how you're going to address this big red flag over here. And I need a lot of confidence from this meeting or meetings to show how you're going to fix that and how quickly you're going to. Otherwise, we need to part ways. And I think there's been a review of some kind going on, and there's a comparison going on between Postecoglou and other options. The rumours that were going around, my understanding of that first rumour that came out that had broken news was that was not based on concrete facts. He's not sacked as of today. I think he would know if he was sacked as of today. But like someone said at the start, there's no smoke without fire. And there will have certainly been conversations with at least agents of other managers. There's no way. I would actually be more concerned as someone who wants Ange to stay if the club had not explored other options and spoken to agents of other managers and just hoped he'd win the final and just been like, yeah, we haven't even thought about what we were going to do actually. Oh gosh, who's the other manager going to be? So I think there's definitely been conversations. Frank is the strongest link, isn't he? In every respect. Rumours, bookies, attainable.
LinkedIn posts,
someone who's attainable. Whether you think he's right or wrong, that's completely completely your opinion. So I'm not going into that right now on whether that's right or wrong. But I do think that's genuine, that we have met with and spoken to Frank. And like others have said, I think that the challenge is the longer this goes on, how's it going to feel being Ange if he comes back like he is now from holiday and he goes, right, I'm ready. I just want to come back in the office. And they're like, no, come and just wait another week before you come back in. And he does come back and it ends up someone like Frank's rejected us. And that's why he's back in his seat. It doesn't leave a great taste in your mouth, does it? That you've kind of, you've been given your job back because someone else didn't want it versus, yeah, we're committed to you. We believe in you. What resources do you need? Because I think if we do stick with Ange or we bring in whoever else, and if it's sticking with Ange, that manager needs complete and utter support from the recruitment department to succeed. And good, consistent recruitment underpins success for any football club. And it sets any manager up with a significantly better chance of success. If it's Thomas Frank, Ange Postecoglou, or Inzaghi, or whoever, if you give them a really good squad, most of those they will probably all succeed. If you give any of them a bad squad, they will probably all fail, but they'll have different levels of failure and success.